I donated for you. I mean, I wanted you to, like, 2016, I was like, this is going to happen. This guy's going to do it. And it felt like they stole it from me. And I'll be honest, it broke my heart when you supported him.
Bernie Sanders gets called out for being a phony right to his face. He recently sat down with Andrew Schultz and the Flagrant podcast where they discussed a bunch of things, but we're going to mainly focus on how Bernie knows and knew at the time, 2016, that the Democratic Party were clearly and effectively undermining him and his movement. Schultz and crew will make it clear that they supported him. No matter what you think about Andrew Schultz, he was able to build a platform that allows people who disagree with each other to just try to get to the facts. So credit to them for telling Bernie exactly how they felt about this whole situation and how disappointed they were, and I guess we all were, when Bernie just completely bent the knee and bent over for the Democratic Party after being railroaded twice. So we're going to watch a couple clips and we'll talk throughout. Let's start off with this clip of Bernie Sanders explaining around the time the Democratic Party started taking a turn for the worse.
70s, 60s, Democrats caught on that you could raise a lot of money from wealthy people. Mm. And it gets back to campaign financing and all that stuff. So you got a Democratic establishment now, which is funded by wealthy people. You have consultants who are really way out of touch with reality, who make a whole lot of money in campaigns. And working class is ignored. And Donald Trump comes along and says, I care about you, which was a lie.
I don't know if that's a lie. I'd give pushback on that. I think that it has to be proven that it's a lie.
All right, I'll prove it.
Yes, thank you. And you're right, I could look through rose-colored glasses, but the idea, I think that when people are struggling, anybody who goes, hey, I'm going to help you out.
Which is what Bernie just said. It was anybody that had the right message. Trump in 2016 had the perfect message. Drain the swamp, especially going against Hillary Clinton, who was very much a part of the swamp her whole life. At one point, Trump was even for healthcare for everybody. I tried to play the clip, but CBS claimed the copyright. But during this interview, Trump was asked, what do you think about healthcare? And he says, everyone should be covered. The interviewer says, who's going to pay for it? And Trump says, the government, which is Medicare for all, or at least some form of universal healthcare. But that was just campaign Trump. That wasn't actually President Trump, because he's been president twice and Medicare for all has never been a part of his agenda. But campaign Trump is one of the greatest politicians ever, because at that time, targeting the establishment, quote unquote, is the best target any politician could go after. That's why even Bernie got super popular, because he was targeting the actual establishment, the people who run things for real that don't ever do public interviews. They just write the policy that eventually gets passed by other people. And talking about those people who control things from behind the scenes just to attack their political opponents very underhandedly, Bernie would get asked about the Bernie Bros thing and how people were just slammed for being sexist or whatever, for not supporting Elizabeth Warren or Hillary Clinton. And it couldn't have been because of their policies. It couldn't have been because they took money from corporations. It had to have been because they were men that didn't want women to succeed. Please. But Bernie knows it was BS. And he calls it out.
We have a question we want to ask about what happened to you in 2016 with this Bernie Bros movement, where your followers are seeing they have a racism problem, a misogyny problem. Do you think that's a super PAC thing behind that?
That was the Democratic establishment. That was the...
Wow. Okay.
That was just, they were sitting there. We had a lot of young people. We had people of color, and they create this kind of myth with the help of the corporate media and all that stuff.
It's kind of interesting to that note is during this election, the podcast space, which the Democrats largely avoided, they feel had some influence in the election, and they started to label us the podcast bros and said that we were sexist and we were racist and bigoted. It's almost like it's the exact same strategy to get you out of there.
Yeah, that's what the liberal elite China does.
If you know this, Bernie, how can you then lead a whole movement only sheep herding people back into that same party? Not just the duopoly in itself, but into that specific party that railroaded your movement. Of course, you only make peace deals with your enemies. But if you bringing people into that party without asking for anything, then many could argue that you're probably worse than the Republican Party that just says, we don't rock with y'all, but vote for me anyways because we hate the same people. Or the liberal elite that says, we're going to pretend to like you as long as you play ball. And if you don't, then we're going to railroad you like this. Both parties straight up tell you they don't really care about most people. If you can't fund their campaigns, then you can go kick rocks. But you say you're of the people, for the people, which then builds support from the people just to get herded back into that same party for nothing. That may not be as plain-faced evil, but I'd rather a clear enemy than a fake friend. But talking about being a sheep herder, finally, let's get into Schultz calling him out for being a phony, a sheepdog for the Democratic Party, the same ones that he calls corrupt, that he knows is corrupt.
And we felt that over the last 4 elections, Democrats, we felt that we didn't have a say on who could be president. We talk a lot about the Republicans being autocrats and oligarchs and taking over democracy, but from the Democrat perspective, and I'm a lifelong Democrat, I felt like the Democratic Party completely removed the democratic process from its constituents. And I think they need to have some accountability of that.
No argument here.
I donated for you. I mean, I wanted you to, like, 2016. I was like, this is going to happen. This guy's going to do it, and it felt like they stole it from me. And I'll be honest, it broke my heart when you supported them.
Look, but you have, in the world that I live in, you got a choice. And I mean, a lot of people, including my wife, agree with you. But you know, you're down to a choice. Is it going to be Hillary Clinton or is it going to be Donald Trump? Not a great choice.
But it ended up being him anyway, so why don't we burn it down?
Well, because it's easy to say burning it down means that children are not going to have, food to eat.
Bullshit.
That the schools will deteriorate. People will not have health care.
I got it.
And I'm an elected official. I got to represent the people.
That's fair.
And I can't turn my back on.
But then could we not also say, if ostensibly there hasn't been a fair primary for the Democrats since 2008, are they not also a threat to democracy? Yes. We often hear.
Fair enough. That is. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that point. And that's why I'm proudly an independent.
It can't be both ways. They can't be corrupt because they take all this money from the richest people in the same way we call Republicans corrupt for taking money from the same corporations and people, but you wouldn't want to break away from them because whether they win or lose, nothing changes. So why not actually do something to change the system? At least if you are going to vote for them and sheep herd people into the party, why not get any concessions on paper in public? Instead, he did nothing, got nothing, and still is now fundraising on the oligarchy tour, saying these people are bad. But when it's time to vote, he's going to say, but we still have to vote for them because the lesser of two evils. Lesser of two evils still means evil. He's too old and understands and has seen way too much to be this pathetic and naive. If you had any power, what do you think is the right move? Stay within these two parties or try to start something with all the support from actual people that you've generated? Let me know in the comment section. If you made it this far into the video, you might as well like and subscribe because clearly you like it here. Peace.